Hi, and welcome to the Mass Saint live from Area 51. I'm Jeff Dixon. I'm your host for this particular show on the Church at 434 in Motion. Now, I'm joined here by a special guest. We'll introduce him in a minute. To my left, to your right, is LeeAnn Stayer.
Hello.
To my right, your left, and I'm now really confused, Michael Simmons. And then to my immediate left, your right, but the guy that you came to listen to, is Chris Whaley. Welcome, Chris.
Hey.
Glad you're here.
Hey.
Thanks for being with us. And Chris Whaley is the Mass Saint. Now, if you're not familiar with that, what that means or what that is, you will by the time we're done with this particular show. But Chris, we're excited that you're here. In all full disclosure, Chris is a friend. And we have known each other for a long time. And so I love him. He loves us. We're glad that he's here and just honored that he would be with us today. And we're going to spend some time talking to him about what is a very exciting portion of his life, and really a portion of his life that has impacted people all over the world. And so, Chris, let's just start, let's go to the beginning of this thing and tell us a little bit about yourself, anything we need to know about you.
Okay, before we get started, is there a time limit?
Oh, no, you can go all day.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Forever. Yeah.
All right, since there's no time limit, I want to start, first of all, and tell you that if you do not have a church home, then you need to be at the church at 434.
Aw.
There you go. I like that.
This is
Wow.
All right, out comes the wallet.
Pay him for that.
Wait a minute. This is the most creative, unbelievable preacher of the gospel that I have ever heard. Michael does the greatest worship music in church, and LeeAnn keeps everything in order.
There we go.
Yes.
So
Make sure you
need
join
to
us for our
be-
next episode.
No, you need to be there. You need to be there. It's interesting that, I've been most of my life in Florida. About an hour from here, there's a little place called Auburndale, and I grew up in Auburndale. My parents moved here from South Alabama. My dad was a long-distance truck driver and a fifth-degree redneck, and my mom was a Jehovah's Witness. But while she was growing up, she had a lot of questions about Jehovah's Witness, and her dad would not answer, and he'd say, "You don't need to know that." She was a very smart gal, and when they moved to Central Florida, there was a pastor out knocking on doors in our neighborhood, and when he knocked on our door, my mom said, "I've been praying for somebody like you for a long time."
Oh, wow.
And so, wouldn't do it today, but in that day, she invited him to come in. They sat at the dinner table. She asked all the questions, and before he left, my mom prayed and asked Christ to come into her heart, which is, 1,000,000 to 1 for a Jehovah's Witness to become, a Christian like that. But she was the beginning of the spiritual heritage of our family. And that happened when I was a little boy. My dad came home, and he wasn't too thrilled about it because, he didn't go to church. But the pastor of that church kept coming over to our house and talking to my dad, helping him work on his truck, took my dad fishing. My dad started going to church. My dad was saved on a Sunday night, and the pastor was preaching on tithing.
Oh, that never happens. That never happens.
Wow.
So anyway, but as a kid, I was a sickly kid. I was in and out of the hospital. Second grade, I had pneumonia. Third grade, I had pneumonia. Fourth grade, I had polio, viral encephalitis. I was in Winter Haven Hospital for 3 months. I tell everybody, my folks bought the second floor at Winter Haven Hospital. For 3 months I was there. Had to learn how to walk all over again. Fifth grade, I had pneumonia again. Sixth grade, seventh grade, they finally sent me to Watson Clinic in Lakeland. They did these big allergy tests on me. Found out that was my problem. I was allergic to everything, and I couldn't build up an immune system. So I started taking those shots when I was in seventh grade and took them all the way until I finished college, and suddenly my immune system started working. And then started putting on weight. I had a godly doctor in Winter Haven, Dr. Raymond LaRue. He was just a wonderful guy, and he refused to let me give up. And he wouldn't show me any sympathy, and he wanted me going to the gym. He wanted me working out with weights to build my legs up and to do it. And so I really enjoyed going to the gym. I enjoyed working out, and I started looking the part and just continued doing it. My wife and I went to Palm Beach Atlantic. It was college in those days, but I followed her down there. She went down there and I followed her.
Probably the best choice you made.
Never planned to go to college. I mean, I majored in lunch when I was in school. But I went to Palm Beach Atlantic, and she took me to First Baptist West Palm, and I heard another guy that I rate very highly up there with Jeff is Dr. Jess Moody. And I never heard anybody preach like that guy. And you know, when they gave what we call the invitation at the end, I did the white knuckle thing. And every time I went back to that church, it was like he knew I was there because he was speaking to me. And so I gave my heart to Christ when I was a freshman in college in my dormitory room on a Wednesday night, and my life changed. And so soon after that, I felt the call into the ministry and graduated from Palm Beach Atlantic. We came back to Central Florida. My wife was a high school math teacher until she retired. And so she was teaching at her alma mater, and I was working a secular job looking to be a youth minister because, you know, they didn't hire 22-year-old pastors in those days. And I was the world's worst youth minister. I just sucked as a youth minister. I was terrible. I was terrible. But that was the only experience you could get. But finally, I became a youth minister in a church in Central Florida. But before that happened, I'm going to the gym every day. I'm in great shape, and I'm reading the Tampa Tribune, and it said wanted professional wrestlers. And I was so excited because when you're in the hospital a lot, the only thing on TV in those days, and we only had 3 channels, but the only thing late at night was professional wrestling. And you get your days and your nights mixed up when you're in the hospital. And so I just became addicted to professional wrestling. I just loved it. And I had all these heroes from my childhood: Eddie Graham, the great Malenko, Don Curtis. All those guys were just bigger than life to me. And so my wife is teaching at her alma mater, and I'm working, and I'm reading the Tampa Tribune. It said wanted professional wrestlers. I picked it up, took it over to my wife, and said, look at this, look at this. And she was grading papers, and she looked, and she went, oh, you know. I said, I'm going. I went in, I packed a bag, I drove over to Tampa, and I walked into the gym, and there was the great Malenko. I mean, it just was so awesome. And so I was trained by the great Malenko. He trained a lot of the big names. He trained Mark Marrow. He had a lot to do with some of the guys that you see on WWE. He was just a great, great guy. I got to wrestle with his boys. His boy Dean became a big star in WWE. He was, they called him the man of 1,000 holes. But his brother Jody was a badder cat than Dean. I mean, Jody was pretty rough guy. But that's how I got into professional wrestling. And can I go ahead and tell you another interesting story?
Sure.
I'm a youth minister, terrible youth minister at this church. And my wife is pregnant with her first child. And they don't pay youth ministers very well. They didn't back in...
I remember.
Yeah, they don't pay youth ministers very well. So I went to the pastor and I said, Pastor, you know, I could wrestle a couple of nights a week and it would really help us financially because Verna's pregnant. And he said, absolutely not. We're not going to turn this church into a circus. And I said, okay. So that Saturday, I'm home and I'm watching wrestling on TV, and one of my buddies is working, and he's working under a hood. They called it, it's a mask, but they called it a hood. So he's working under a mask, and I said, that's it. I'll just come up with a gimmick, and I'll start wearing a mask, and I'm wrestling where I want to, and nobody else knows. And so I did that. I bought a mask. I had white mask, white tights, white trunks, white boots, and a cape, and I started wrestling as the Saint. And it was kind of neat though, because you get some injuries. I get a black eye, broke nose, and I would go into the church and they'd say, "What happened to you?" And I said, "I fell down," which was true. I fell down. I had a lot of help falling down, but I fell down. And so I eventually got fired from that church. That's the only time I've ever been fired. But anyway, you know, I just stayed in wrestling. And finally in 1985, or 1984 really, just the call of God was on me so strong, and I was just miserable, and I was talking to my wife one night, and I said, Vern, I got to do what God's called me to do. And she said, I've just been waiting for you to say it. Mm-hmm. So we sold our dream home in Lakeland, Florida on a lake, and moved to Fort Worth, Texas to go to Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. And then I got to wrestle from 1985 to 1988. I got to wrestle in Texas and Oklahoma and Louisiana, Mississippi, all around there. And so my last 3 years in seminary, I'm going to seminary in daytime and wrestling at night. Okay.
Wow.
Wow.
And you have been, I mean, I'm fast forward a little bit because I know a little bit about your career at this point. Yeah. You know, you have pastored churches here in Florida, and I mean, I don't know. Most people can't say when they talk about their pastor, "Hey, my pastor was a professional wrestler." No, they just can't say that. But obviously, with this small little picture behind you, and this logo above our head, and a film by the same title, the Saint, obviously, that persona you took on certainly is a very big part of your life. We want to stop for a minute and actually show you a clip from the film, The Masked Saint. And this is one that, as we were talking about, of a young Chris in the film. Set this up for us, and then we'll cut to it.
Yeah, young Chris was getting bullied a lot, which is true. You know, I was a sickly kid, and sickly kids are great bait for bullies. And so he's getting bullied, and he's at home and he's watching professional wrestling on TV, and the match that he is watching on TV is actually one of my old matches. As a matter of fact, it was one of the last matches that I had. I was a pastor when that was taped because I was doing a benefit for a lady in my church that had cancer, and so I did a benefit to try to raise money for her and her family. And so it was. They had it on a football field. It was on the 50-yard line, the ring was, and so they're using the stands, and then they've got about 2,000 chairs around the field and all. And so I was wrestling that night. I was wrestling the evil Prince Anaka. Yeah, I was wrestling him, and so they used that video for the movie for young Chris to watch.
Wow! So not only do you get to see a clip of the film, but you get to see a clip of Chris in the film. And so let's watch that, and then we're going to come back and talk a little bit more.
Here we are in the WFW Wrestling main event against the Gladiator of Good and the Burly Beast. There's an arm twist, elbow knock, and the Beast gets him into a neck hold. The Gladiator reverses on the Beast, sending him into the corner. The Gladiator does his drop toe hold. The Gladiator of Good can basically go straight to the winner's circle. This is one of the most devastating submission moves. Legs can be broken this way. Kids, don't try this at home.
Well, if it isn't the runt. Leave me alone, Mike. Did you hear that? The piglet speaks. Whoa! Ow! 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 Okay, I can! Let's get out of here.
I love how you make a cameo in your own film. That's pretty cool, right?
Hey. Yeah.
So over the course of a wrestling career, who do you get to wrestle?
Well, I've had the opportunity to wrestle some of the greats. Of course, wrestling with the great Malenko, that was, how awesome is that? I mean, that guy is just a Hall of Famer. He's unbelievable. I had the opportunity to wrestle with the Freebirds when I was in Texas, and the Von Erichs, flamboyant Eric Embry. I wrestled the first black world heavyweight champion, who was Iceman King Parsons, and they even used that name in the movie. They used the name Iceman for one of the wrestlers in the movie. But I guess the biggest name that I ever worked against, one that most people recognize, is The Undertaker. I got to work against the Undertaker.
Break out the gongs, man.
I gotta tell you, it was in those days, if I wrestled on a Friday night, I would take my girls. I have a wife and 2 girls, and so they would go to the event with me, and they'd sit in the crowd. And after I got through wrestling, I'd go back, take a shower, change clothes, and then they would meet me in the parking lot, and we would do our Friday night fun night. We always do Friday night fun night. And so on this particular night, I wrestled, and as soon as I got back and I'm taking my boots off, and my family would give me a few minutes before they would head out to the car. But I'm taking my boots off, the promoter comes in and says, hey, the guy who's supposed to work against Mark Calloway, who is the Undertaker, he's not going to make it. He's traveled. He didn't make it. I need somebody to work again who would, who wants to work against Mark. And I said, I'll do that. I'll do it. I mean, I knew this guy was going to be a big star. I said, this is before he was the Undertaker. Okay. So I got the referee. I said, go out to find my wife. He knew who my wife was. I said, find my wife and my girls. Tell them not to go to the car. I'm going to wrestle again. And don't tell them who I'm going to work against. And he said, okay. So he goes out and he comes back and he said, hey, I found them and they're going to wait on you. And I said, you didn't tell them who I'm working against? He said, no, I didn't tell them. I said, okay. So anyway, it's time for the match. I go out, and since, he's the star, I got to get in the ring first. So I get in the ring, and the lights go down, and Mark walks in. They're playing this hideous music as he walks in. And my girls had never seen this guy before. And when he walked in, I found him in the crowd. So I'm looking in the crowd and I'm watching. And my youngest girl, she started crying. And then my other one and my wife, they're going, as they see this guy walk out. He's 6'8", he weighed 315 pounds. Wow. He's big boy. And so anyway, I kept my eyes on my wife, and she's just... And then I saw her real quickly. She reached over and grabbed the purse and started going through the purse. So anyway, I obviously made it through the match. I worked against Mark. It was a great match. We went about 20 minutes. I mean, he did all of his stuff. He did the full body press above the head. He's 6'8". His arms are that long. So I'm way up
10
there.
feet in the air.
And then he does that thing where you go all the way down, boom, and you hit the mat. I mean, it was awesome. Anyway, I make it through the match, and so I go out the parking lot and I meet my girls, and we do some fun stuff, go out to eat. And so we're driving from Dallas back to Fort Worth, and we're driving. I look in the rearview mirror, and both my little girls are asleep. And I looked over at my wife, and she's like this, and I said, hey, babe, right before that match started, I noticed you grabbed your purse and you're going crazy going through your purse. I said, what were you doing? And she said, I was looking for the checkbook to make sure you'd paid the insurance. So that's a true story.
So when you're doing this, so you're in seminary and you're wrestling, where are you finding time for conditioning? Because if you're going one-on-one with a 6'8", 350, how are you staying in shape? Obviously, running for your life.
You go to. I'm going to seminary. Plus, I'm picking my girls up and taking them to school and stuff. So, I take my girls to school. I go to school, and then I go pick them up, and I go to the house. And I was a good husband. I put supper on.
Nice.
Because my wife was a teacher, and so I get supper started, and I'm lifting weights while I'm fixing supper, and. I'm reading textbooks and doing Greek in the dressing room, and then after the matches doing a lot of studying too. So you didn't get much sleep back in those days, but you get the workout in. So that's a good question. I like that.
Yeah. So the whole intro thing that is really big now, like contemporary wrestling now, it's all about the entrance.
Yeah.
And you guys were on the front end of that big entrance stuff. You're telling me, Mark, did you have an entrance song?
No, that was before, they play music for everybody. Sure. They'd play music, but I didn't have my own special song or anything like that. It would have been neat today. If I was still doing it today, I'd have a
what song?
A good Christian.
What song?
What song?
What song? We gotta know what song.
I'd have a good Christian song. I would.
Well, now the Undertaker's still going. I mean, what? Why
Get
aren't
back
you?
in there.
I mean, come on, what's going on?
Hey, there really isn't big demand for guys my age. Yeah. I don't know, but yeah, he's still doing stuff. You know,
He's not doing 20-minute matches anymore, though.
He shows up
is he?
about once a year for WrestleMania, right?
Yeah.
And everybody moves around, and it's kind of like watching.
Well, you know, when they were making the movie, matter of fact, if you get the DVD, the behind the scenes stuff, it's not the which one you got there. Yeah, they have behind the scenes stuff in there. Now, it was really neat when they were making that movie. They filmed all the wrestling in 1 week. So the first morning they pick me up, they take me to this big hockey arena. It was filmed in Sault Ste. Marie, Canada. So they take me to this big hockey arena where they were filming the first day, one of the big matches. And when they take you, drop you off at the door, it's actually upstairs, you know, because the arena is down. So I walk in, and I'm walking, and I look, and I see the ring, and my heart started beating. And, and then I see the wrestlers, and so I went down there. And there was a young guy putting his boots on, and I said, "Hey, man, when you get your boots on," I said, "how about getting in the ring with me?" I said, "I haven't been in the ring in years, and I'd just love to get in there and do some stuff." And he looked at me, he said, "You're an old man, get the heck out of here." I said, "Come on." I was 59. I was 59 when they made the movie. "Yeah, I'm not. Get out of here, get out of here." So I kept irritating him. So I got up on the ring. I got up on the ring.
He learned that at seminary.
I said, I'm getting in whether you do or not. So he got up, and so anyway, we locked up, and I said, "Take me down, take me down." He said, "You're an old man. I'm not going to take me down." So he did a couple of real small stuff. And I said, "That's not what I'm talking about. Lock up with me." I locked up, and I did an arm drag takedown. Whew. You know, I took his fanny off he hit, and it knocked the wind out of him, and he sat up, he said, "Who are you?" And I said, the movie, it's based on my book. "Oh man, I'm sorry. So we're talking. I said, "You know, I haven't been body slammed in 25 years. So I'm gonna take me up for a body slam." So anyway, it's on that it's on that video, the behind the scenes stuff.
And then Verna reached to her purse and began
No. But what was really neat is after he did the body slam, there were like 5 producers on the movie, and all 5 of them came running up to the ring going, you know, and I what? And they said, "We don't have insurance on you. Don't do that."
Always goes back to the insurance.
What do you say? You think I'd sue you or what? Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Nah.
So all of this comes together in a book called The Masked Saint. Tell me a little bit about the process of writing the book. Oh, look at that.
It's right here.
The Masked Saint.
Well, I graduated from seminary in 1988, and I went to my first church in Central Florida. And, you know, I'd never been a pastor before. I came right out of professional wrestling. And it was, you know, different world. And I had a way of doing things when I was a wrestler, and now you're a pastor, and I'm trying to come to grips with all of that. And I had a young lady that would come to church every Sunday. She was the last person that would walk in, and she was the first one to leave. And she had a couple of kids, and she'd drop them off at where our children's ministry was. And she would stay there, you know, and leave real quick. And on this one particular Sunday, she was not the last person to come in, but she came in with sunglasses on. And I would always stand at the front, and people would come out, and I'd shake their hands. And on this particular day, she was the last person to come out. And when she came out, she walked up, and she grabbed my hand with both of her hands, and she had her head down, and she had tears coming down. And I just reached over and took the sunglasses and lifted them up, and she had 2 black eyes. And it infuriated me. Bullies are cowards. Bullies automatically pick on people they know they can, you know, beat or intimidate or whatever. And then just to think, you know, the man is hitting the mother of his children. You know, what a dirtbag. And so I said something to her. I said, I'm gonna go see your husband. She started crying. "No, please don't. He'll hurt you. He'll hurt you." And I said, "I'm not really worried about it, but I'm gonna go see him." So I drove over to their house. I got out in the front yard, and I called him out. And he comes to the door. He said, he gets belligerent with me. And I said, "I just came to see how you would do against somebody who could fight back instead of a woman." I said, what kind of a dirtbag hits his wife and blacks both of her eyes, the mother of your children? I said, what in the heck's wrong with you, man? And he gets more belligerent, he comes out, and I welcomed him. And it was fun, you know, because, you know, when you're a pastor, you know, you don't get to relieve your stress.
No, you don't do that. Usually that's really bad form for church people. That's good.
So anyway, he didn't hit her again, so that was a good thing. And then I just started having incidents like that happen in my church. And, you know, here it is years later, and I am in my last church, First Baptist Longwood, and I've been trying to get a ghostwriter, because I never saw myself as a writer. I still don't. But I never could get it worked out to tell the story and have somebody write it. And so this is the day of personal computers, and it was a Saturday, and I was sitting at the computer, and I just started typing, and I typed out, you know, this first couple of chapters, and my wife read it, and she said, "That's awesome, keep going." So each chapter is built off of something that really happened, just like the Undertaker story, it's in there. The story of the wife beater, that's in there. And so I just had all these incidents, and I just started putting them down, and that's how the Masked Saint came. Wow. Yeah. It was easy to write because I actually had this stuff happening, so I could write about it.
And I mean, I had an advantage. I mean, I got to read this book before it ever became a movie. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the conversations I can remember us having is, you know, this needs to be a movie. This needs to be a movie. And tell us that jump. Let's make that jump. How does this become a movie?
Okay. First, I got to give you a commercial here. This is the greatest author there is.
I tell you what, there's never been a better guest.
Wow.
I have read.
Oh my goodness!
I have read
that one soon anyway.
Be quiet. I have read all.
Don't body slam you.
I have read all of his books. The last one is the greatest one. I mean, Kingdom in Chaos. Is it Kingdom in Chaos or Kingdom Chaos?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. If you have not read The Key to the Kingdom and all the other Kingdom books, and you're a Disney fan, then what are you doing? I mean, this guy is an unbelievable author. You got to
redirect here. This is pretty.
Yeah.
He's wearing his man.
Okay. Now, what did you ask me?
Something how this book became a movie.
How did it become a movie?
I don't remember now.
I got to tell you.
Because he wants to make his books into movies. So how did you do it?
My sister was working at one of the high schools in Orange County, and she knew a lot of the kids, knew a lot of the parents, and there's a movie producer whose kids were in that school. And matter of fact, this is the guy who was the executive producer on all of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies, the blockbusters, the first three.
Sure.
He was the guy on that. And then he made a movie called Bobby Jones' story, Stroke of Genius, with Jim Caviezel. And then he made a faith-based movie called Letters to God. And so my sister took my book and gave it to his wife and said, "Here you go," because she knew her from school. So she took the book, gave it to her husband, and her husband called and asked me to come in and sit down and talk with him. So I went downtown. He has an office in downtown Orlando, and I went down there and I met with him several times. Matter of fact, I even hired a script writer to write a script, and that whole process went on for about a year. I mean, I'm getting sick of it. But during that process, I'm also meeting other people in the movie business. And I had another producer that flew from Canada down here and met me at Disney World that had read the book and was interested in doing a movie. And so that's 2009. And just all of this stuff takes place, and I am just getting sick because it's just failure after failure. And I'm ready to take the Masked Saint and put it on the shelf so that one day my grandkids can look at it and say, "Hey, look what Papa wrote." And I'm sick of it. And the guy who originally talked to me, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, after a year he cut me off, and then another one cut me off, and there's a story behind that, but I'm not going to get into it. But then It's 2013, February 2013, wow. And I'm actually driving to the gym, and my phone rang, and I answered it, and it's a producer in Canada, in Toronto, and he said, "Has anybody done anything with your book?" And I said, "No." And I rolled my no, and he said, "Okay," and I said, "Okay," click, and so I went ahead, not expecting to hear anything. 2 weeks later, I'm driving to the gym. And the phone rings, and he's, you know, it's the producer in Canada, and he said, "Are you sitting down?" I said, "Matter of fact, I am." I said, "I'm driving." He said, "We're going to make your book into a movie." And I almost soiled myself. I mean, I could not believe it. I said, "Are you serious?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm serious." He said, "We're going to get the script started, and hopefully we'll have the script ready, and we're going to film in July." I could not believe it. So now, they didn't get the script ready. The script was not finished until the 1st of October. So the movie started filming on November the 4th of 2013. And it was cold. It was filmed in Sault Ste. Marie, Canada. Now, when they were going to film it in July, they could say it took place in Florida, because everything took place in Florida. But now there's snow on the ground, and so they.
The panhandle.
Yes. So they say that the movie takes place in a fictitious town in Michigan to make it. But I never pastored in Michigan. But that's you know, it was filmed in November 2013, and then it has to go through the editing process and all of that, and then 2015 they entered it into the International Christian Film Festival, and it won Best Picture out of about 400 films. It was amazing that they picked it as Best Picture. I think you were there.
I was there, man. I was just going to say, I didn't want to cut you off. I sat there watching the film. That's the first time I'd seen it.
Yeah.
I mean, my heart was beating so hard for you as we're watching that thing, thinking, and they're going to announce a winner a little bit later. And I'm watching the film and I'm going, this is so much better than everything else. But I'm like, this is really great. This is fantastic. And then I'm just thinking, it has to win. It has to win. I was there with your son.
Yeah,
we went and we watched it, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is great. Because I'm not always a huge fan of Christian films because they all tend to have the same plot. Yeah. This one does not. Rarely do you get to see a pastor come out of the pulpit and kick somebody's butt. So, I mean, I loved it.
And it's awesome.
It is awesome. There's no doubt about it. Yeah. And again, it's our show. We can do what we want. That night, tell us about the guy that came. And remember, he started talking trash at you from the audience.
Yeah.
And while you were on the stage after the film, so we kind of just had this little mini wrestling thing happen. I'm like,
what?
That was actually a good friend of mine that I got into wrestling with, who just wanted, I invited him, and he came, and I didn't know why he was sitting over. I wanted him to sit over here with me, but he did that on purpose. He sat over there, and so he gets up and starts talking smack, and I said, "Oh, he wants to work? Okay, all right, man." So we doing a little bit of theatrics there.
That was great.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
International Film Festival, man, they're talking smack from the stage. I'm like, this is gonna win. This is gonna be great.
It was awesome.
I remember Elvo and Markel saying, it's not going to get any better than this. There's nothing else we're going to see that's going to be this good. This was fantastic.
Yeah, it was great.
Well, let's stop from there. We're going to transition into another clip now, and it changes the pace a little bit here. But this is a clip that features a character named Miss Edna, where Pastor Chris and his wife go to her house for the first time. Now, set this up for us, and why we're looking at it.
Okay. In my book, the book and the movie are pretty different. Of course, that's not unusual. But if there's a star of my book, it is Miss Edna. She is a precious lady from my childhood. I met her when I was a little boy. They lived in a home that wasn't too far from us, but in those days, you used to, when you were a kid, you came home from school, you put your shorts on, no shirt, no shoes, and you went out and played till dark. Your mom had to call you in. And so we moved to this new neighborhood, and I'm walking around, and so I see this house, and so they were kind of off the beaten path, and so I went down there, and I met Miss Edna. And she had a husband. His name was Edgar. Edgar and Edna. That
Oh,
was
wow.
him. And just great, great people. And just about every chapter in that book, there's a lesson that I learned from her. And some of my greatest memories are sitting on their carport. You know, they didn't have a garage; they had a carport, and you'd sit out there because there's no air conditioning.
Right.
And she made the best sweet tea and the best apple pie in the world, and I just grew up loving that woman. And her husband died when I was a teenager. She had one son who lived in Illinois, and I was there the day her husband died, and it was just a very sad day. And so her son took her back to Illinois to live with him, and I never got to see her again. And but she's just a real precious lady. And she is played in the movie by Diane Carroll.
Wow.
And if you don't know who Diane Carroll is, you know, she was an unbelievable actress. I think she was the very first African American to have her own television show, Julia.
It was, yeah.
She was nominated for an Academy Award. She's won all kinds of awards, and just a precious lady. She was 79 when they filmed this movie. And when you look at her, I mean, she's gorgeous. She is gorgeous. And she's just a real precious lady. And, you know, every time I saw her, she gave me a hug. And I was just thrilled to be around Diane Carroll. And she plays the part of Miss Edna in the movie. And she did a great, this is the last film that Diane Carroll made. And she passed away last year. So very thrilled about the fact that my film was the last one she made.
So it wins an international film festival. Diane Carroll is in it. This is not a home movie, people. If you have not seen this film by now, you need to see it. We want to show you this clip. This features Miss Edna and Chris Samuels and his wife. Let's take a look.
Is this the place?
This is the address Tim gave me.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Pastor Chris. I'm Miss Edna Clark, and everybody likes to call me Miss Edna. Please, come in, come in.
Is it okay if the dog comes?
Every creature is welcome in my home.
Thank you.
Dollhouse, cool.
So you're saying the church hasn't been able to support itself in years?
Well, Judd is the only thing supporting that church. But unfortunately, Judd is also the reason our congregation has fallen to less than half. Nobody can stand that man.
Maybe Judd needs an attitude adjustment.
Chris, you'll have to excuse my husband, Miss Edna. Sometimes he forgets he's a pastor now.
My husband and I gave everything we had to Westside Baptist. And when the pastorship opened again, I asked Tim, please, Tim, find us a fighter.
It was you.
That was me. You forgot your umbrella.
Oh,
Thanks.
thank you.
So go find some lost souls.
We will.
Please.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
The dollhouse, Miss Edna.
It's a deal. Come on.
Should we do this the old school way?
Door to door, baby.
I don't think it's gonna rain.
Wow, that was awesome. So, were you pleased with how the movie turned out?
I was. I mean, when they make a movie based on your book, how can you not be?
Well, you had said earlier that there was a lot of
Yeah.
difference between book and movie, which
there
happened.
was.
So,
There
the
was.
things that they changed, did that?
You know, some of the reasons for changing it is because of the weather. You know,
Oh,
some
okay.
things they couldn't do outside and all like that. But no, overall, I was thrilled to death. I mean, I didn't know, you know, what kind of wrestlers they would have for the movie, and all my wrestling buddies who saw the movie. Matter of fact, Mick Foley did a bunch of promos for the movie, and there's another famous wrestler, I can't even think of his name off the top of my head. He did a bunch of promos for the movie too. But all the wrestlers that I've met who've watched the movie, one of the things they said is, hey man, all the wrestling is great in the movie.
Awesome.
So those, I mean, they had professional wrestlers that did those scenes in the movie. And the guy who plays the bad guy, the Reaper, is a guy named James Preston Rogers. And James is, he looks like the Undertaker. He does. I told him during the filming, I said, man, you look like a young Undertaker. But he looks mean. He's about the same height as the Undertaker, same weight, and just an unbelievable build. And he is the nasty of all nasties. I mean, he did a great job of being a heel and a bad guy, and you couldn't ask for anything better. And some of those wrestling scenes, there's a scene at the end. If you go on YouTube and you look at the trailer for the movie, The Masked Saint, you'll see this clothesline that James gives the stunt guy, and he does a 360. And I mean, it's just awesome. I mean, the wrestling in it, the wrestling in it is great. But the young man that plays me in the movie is Brett Grandstaff. And Brett did most of his own stunts. There's only 3 stunts that he did not do in the movie. He didn't do the big high-flying one off the top rope, and he didn't do the one that was 360. And then there's a scene where James, he's got the leg scissors on James, and he throws him up, and he does a face plant. And those 3 were done by a stunt double.
Okay.
But he did most of his own scenes, and so the wrestling was good, the acting was good. The gal that plays my wife in the movie, Laura Jean Chorostecki, she's a Canadian actress, beautiful gal, and she's been in a lot of things. Matter of fact, James Preston Rogers, he was in Adam Sandler's movie Pixels.
Oh.
He plays a Navy SEAL in that. He's on a lot of TV stuff. There's I guess some series called Rain. I think it's a Canadian series, but he plays in that. He's been in stuff with Tom Selleck. He's just been in a lot of movies, and he's in Hollywood right now. He's living there and working in films all the time. Laura Jean, she did the TV series Hannibal. You remember the TV series Hannibal?
Okay.
She had a recurring role in that. But the young lady who's just blown it out of the water is the one that plays my daughter, Allison, or Carrie. Her name is Carrie Allison, but they call her Carrie in the movie. That young lady, she did a movie with Christopher Plummer and Martin Landau called Remembrance. I don't know if you saw that. It was about a Holocaust survivor and all, but she was in that. She was in the last X-Men movie. She plays the bald-headed guy's granddaughter in that. She was even on a Hallmark movie called Christmas at Cartwright's or something like that.
Okay.
So she had a big part in that, and she's done really well. As a matter of fact, she is the daughter of a Southern Baptist minister in Canada. That's pretty cool.
That is very cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and your wife got to be in the movie, right?
She did.
She had a cameo.
Did. Yeah, they dressed her up like a bag lady. They did. When they put these clothes on her, and she said, "Ooh, these things smell." I said, "Yeah, we got them out of a thrift store, But
She wear her own clothes.
They dressed her up, and they made her look like a bag lady. But she's the first one in the movie that slams the door in the face of Chris. And then my youngest daughter and her husband are the last ones to slam door in Chris's face. My oldest daughter had just had a baby.
Okay.
And so she was nursing, and they couldn't travel to Canada. And so I'm so sorry that my oldest daughter wasn't able to be there. But had she been there, she would have been in the movie.
She could have slammed the door in your face, too.
She could have done that, too. Yeah.
Well, you had mentioned earlier about them doing the script and it taking so long, even the first go-around and stuff.
Right.
Did you get a lot of input into the script?
They were very, very gracious. Every time they redid the script, they would send me a copy and get my input on it. Would you change anything?
Nice.
And stuff like that. So that was pretty impressive, getting to read a movie script for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
And say, I would never have said that.
Yeah, I did say that a couple times.
A couple times.
Yeah.
Well, so much of what we saw, though, really did happen. So the licenses they took was really more with just the weather conditions and things like that, or?
Well, Miss Edna, they brought her up to real time. I mean, the movie is real time, but they brought Miss Edna up to real time, and that's a big change in the movie. And then the wife beater thing, they took some license with that. They don't show me beating him up or anything. And then there's another scene that we're going to look at in the movie, and I'll wait and tell the story on how they changed that one. There's a scene that takes place in a restaurant and that's being robbed, but that didn't happen.
Oh, okay.
What it was is, I was actually, Jeff, I was on my way to an evangelism conference in South Florida, Fort Lauderdale. I'm on my way to an evangelism conference. And man, I was stressed out. I was stressed out. I couldn't go with my family. My family actually went with another pastor friend and his family. They went ahead and went on down there to Fort Lauderdale. I had to do a funeral. So I'm driving the turnpike, and I've just been going through a lot of stress. And I pulled into one of the service classes. And when I went in, these three thugs almost knocked me over, you know, going into the place before me, and I'm saying, this is not a good time to happen. And so I go in and you know, I go to the restroom, wash my hands and everything, come back out, and these three guys are still just being jerks. And I'm standing in line, and I mean, they sputted in line, and I said, you know, you guys are getting to be a little bit annoying. I said, and a lot of other people were shaking their heads too, because they were harassing other people. And so they proceeded to get around me.
Oh.
I got one here, and one there. And if you've ever seen that movie Sherlock Holmes, you know how he always thinks about a fight ahead of time, and he's saying, you know, I'll do
slow
this,
motion.
I'll do this, and I'll do this, you know, and they show it in front of him. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, okay, there's no way to get out of this. I said, so this guy's going to get an elbow, this guy's going to talk at a much higher voice, and then this guy's going to be limping for a while. You know, you've got to do this real quick. And so once once it started, you know, this guy got the elbow, this guy's talking in a much higher voice, and this guy probably walking with a limp today. And boom, you know, it happened. And matter of fact, I thought I was going to the Hilton. I did. I'm waiting with handcuffs, you know, and the state troopers are the ones that give security, you know. And so the guy walks in, he says, stand up. And I takes the handcuffs off. He said, you're free to go. Really? He said, yeah. He said, there's nobody here pressing charges, and the guys that, you know, those three guys aren't here. He said, they probably have warrants on them or something. And he said, you're free to go. So, thank you very much. But in the movie,
all the time going to evangelism conferences. You know, that's just the.
But in the
moral
movie,
of the story is
in the movie, they have the three guys and they're robbing the place and all that and all. But they added that to the movie.
Well, your story was better.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Now we're the toughness that Chris Samuels in the film, the character brings, is I mean, that obviously is a thread that runs all the way through it. There's a scene that we're going to show that takes place on what everyone who's ever been around church basketball knows.
Yep.
Oh my
It's the
sakes.
calmest place in the world, a church
No.
a basketball league, right?
You would think y'all are playing for $1 million.
So this is a scene that takes place there. Tell us what goes on.
Well, this is another scene that they changed. What actually happened took place on a softball field.
Oh,
But
that's bad too.
It's snowing.
It's 28 degrees outside. Yeah. And so they can't play softball, so they change it to a basketball. But the guy in the movie is Judd, and in my book, Judd was a jerk. The chapter is called the hypocrite. Every church has hypocrites. I'm a hypocrite sometimes. We're all hypocrites,
we are.
you know. But that's all that some people want to talk about, are the hypocrites in the church. But this guy was the hypocrite of all hypocrites. And I had put up with him literally for 5 years. He owned a business in the town, and it's kind of funny. I would go and visit people who visited the church, and I would sit there in their home, and they'd say, I noticed the guy that owns such and such a business. I saw him in the church. Is he a member? And I said, well, yeah. I said, okay, we won't be back. And so when that would happen, I would go to his place of business, and I said, let me tell you about a conversation I had. I said, you know, these people are not coming back to this church because of you and the way you've treated them in your business. And I said, you need to change the way you're doing things, or find a different church or whatever. and he'd always get belligerent and all. And we'd have business meetings, church business. I hate church business meetings. We'd have church business meeting. After the meeting, you know, I remember one time he came up and he stuck his finger in my face, and he was like this. And I told him, I said, you better get that finger out of my face, buddy. I can take a lot of stuff, but don't do that. So I'm put up with him for 5 years. We're playing church league softball. Church league softball. And, you know, I love it. We're having a good time, and it's a close game. And he, you know, Judd makes a wild throw, and the guy misses it, and we lose the game. So the game's over, shaking hands, we're walking off, and all I can hear is, and you hear the, and I am just sick of this guy. And so finally, you know, he kept doing it, and I just turned around and I said, shut your mouth. And it shocked everybody on the team, because the pastor telling a church member to shut up is not something, you know. He said, you can't tell me to shut up. And I said, well, you know, unless there's a recorded voice around here, that was me. Shut up, you're embarrassing us. And then he ran towards me.
Oh.
And it happened so fast. I kid you not. He ran towards me, and it was like I had a devil on one shoulder saying, knock him on his rear end. And I had an angel on the other shoulder going, you're a pastor, you're a pastor. And the devil won. But I decked him, you know. I decked him, and it was over so quick. And it's like, you know, I got all the church members standing around going, and I said, oh my God, what did I do? And when he got up, when he woke up, he wasn't happy. Yeah. And I'm going to have you fired, and I don't care what you do. So I had this old guy who was one of my deacons. His name was Bob, and I would pick Bob up every Saturday, and he was a widower. So I'd take him to the ball game, and then after the ball game, we would go get pizza. He was just a precious, precious guy. So I got Bob, and we sat in the car, and I just said, Bob, I don't feel like pizza today. And he said, that's okay, I understand. And I said, okay. I said, it's not a good day. He said, okay, I understand. So I drove home. I took Bob home. I pulled up in my driveway, and my wife was out working in the yard, and I got out, and she said, how'd the game go? I said, not very well. Oh, she went, oh, do you lose? And I said, more than you think. And then I told her what I did, and she said, Chris, what? I can't believe you. And she was not happy. So I called the chairman of deacons, Jess. He was a sweet, sweet guy. And I called Jess, and I said, Jess, you're not going to believe what I did. I said, and I told him what I did. I said, we had 6 retired pastors in our church, 6 retired pastors.
Wow.
So I said, call one of the retired guys and get them to preach tomorrow. I'll meet with you guys tomorrow afternoon, and I'll resign. And about an hour later, Jess called me. He said, well, I talked to all the deacons, and they don't want the retired guy to preach. They want you to preach. And they said, we'll meet tomorrow, and don't leave. And I was thinking, oh my gosh. So the next morning, we had an 8:30 service and 11 o'clock service. 8:30 service is about 120 people. And, you know, and by the way, Judd's here. He's sitting over here, chomping at the bits. He's over there. You know, you can see him. And I'm not singing the songs. I'm not worshiping, Jeff. I'm not worshiping. And it was time for me to preach. And this was the time when they had the little pews up on the platform. Remember that?
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm sitting in that little pew, and I'm looking out at people, and I'm dying. And so it was time for me to preach. And I sat there in silence for several moments, and it was getting uncomfortable. So I just got up, and I walked down front, and I stood in front of the people. And I said, you know, I've heard about people who've given the Lord's work a bloody nose, but I never thought I would be one of them. I said, but I did that yesterday. I said, you know, we were playing church league softball, and I hit a member of this church. I called his name. I said, he's sitting right there. And I said, even though he is one of the most reprehensible human beings that I've ever met in my life, that was no reason to hit him. And so I asked you to forgive me. I've asked God to forgive me. I asked you to forgive me. I said, I'm going to meet with the deacons this afternoon, and whatever punishment they think I deserve, I'll take it. I said, I just couldn't get up there and preach without you knowing what had taken place. So I got up and I preached. Well, the word must have got out real quickly, because at the 11 o'clock service, it was packed. I mean, it was packed. And so I had to do the same thing. I walked down in front of the people. I shared the whole thing. Of course, the guy wasn't there in that service, but I told who it was. And I said, I couldn't get up there and preach without you knowing what I did. And I turned around to go up there, and there was a guy on the second row. I still remember his last name was Castro, Hector Castro. I still remember. Hector stood up and he said, I think we should stand in support of our pastor. And the whole congregation stood and applauded. Wow. And of course I got up to preach, and my wife and I are driving home, and I said, what other pastor in the state of Florida could knock a member of his church on his rear end and get a standing ovation? But anyway, that's the true story. That's what happened.
That's better than the film.
Again.
But in the movie, they make it into a basketball game, and you know, it's the story with Judd.
Well, as good as this scene is, the real story was better.
Much
And now you
better.
know what it is. Let's take a look at the clip, and then we'll come back.
Come on, West Side. Here we go. There you go. Come on, West Side.
Come on, Tim.
Oh, for Pete's sake, Tim! You want to play a zones? Cover your man! Get out! Samuels, you're in! Good. Don't get comfortable, Harper.
I never am, baby. I never am.
Come on,
Get four, get four,
Here
get
we
four.
go.
Thank you.
What? What?
You okay?
You're gonna do that? You're gonna go that?
It's okay, a lot of time left, buddy.
Well, you guys are pathetic. What, do you made a cardboard, Chris? Stand up to your opponent like
All
a
right,
man.
Judd, I have had enough of your attitude. You need to step up. You need to step out. You're acting like a child.
Hey, it's embarrassing out here.
Looks like Judd is speaking his mind.
Oh, if Judd actually spoke his mind, he really wouldn't have a lot to say.
Count it. That's me the hard way, baby. Woo!
Because you're a cop, don't think you're getting away with murder.
Detective, baby.
You're going down.
Detective. Get 2, 3. I got 4. Pick that. Let's go.
Whoa. Knock him down. Knock him down.
Good.
Set up.
Get that ball. I got Judd. Judd, I got back door. Get it.
What is wrong with you, Samuels? You were wide open with that.
Why don't you worry about a rebound sometime,
Oh,
Judd?
why don't you worry about your jumper? Don't talk to me about defense. Your wife is porous as a sponge.
What'd you say about my
Wife's
wife?
porous as a sponge. A sponge, a little tiny sponge. Hey, if I'm wrong, it'd be the first time.
Yo, get 4. Ball, 7. Get that. Trap.
Oh, balls out. What are you thinking, Tim?
I wasn't expecting it. I'm so sorry. That's my bad.
My
I'm
bad,
sorry.
my bad. It's all your bad. Each and every one of you bad.
Come on, Judd. Look, this is supposed to be fun.
Fun. This is our first game. We keep playing like this, we're not going to make the playoffs. And that will not be fun.
Delay of game.
What? You're an idiot. Who will let you on the court?
Who let me on the court? You know what? You are out of here.
How dare you? Do you know how much money I put in this league? You have no right to throw me out. I throw you out. You're gone. You're gone. You're gone. You're gone.
Hey, you call yourself a Christian? Why don't you start acting like one?
You know what, Samuels? You're out of here, too. There's no way you should be leading my church.
Actually, Judd, I'm pretty sure it's not your church.
I put the money into it. I keep it going. If I want to call it mine, it is. And you're gone.
No, Judd, you're gone. And your team's gone.
What?
For the season.
What is-
You're out of here.
No, what are you? That's it, pal. You're... Hey. Oh.
Judd, the more you struggle, the more it's gonna hurt. Quit struggling, Judd.
Sleeper hole!
Quit struggling. The worse it's gonna be. Do you hear me? Do you understand? The more you struggle, the more it's gonna hurt.
That is enough, Christopher.
Judd, I'm sorry.
What? You just gonna stand there? This pastor attacked me.
Yeah, and he kicked your butt.
You stink, Judd!
You're done. It's over, Pastor.
Powerful clip. While you're watching that clip, we've been talking about some other things and life experiences we've had up here. Chris, I mean, we talk about your life and the book and this movie. I mean, tell us about the impact. I mean, what, you know, again, my goodness, you know, how many people do you know that has had a movie with the acclaim that this one has gotten made after life? I mean, what? Tell us about the impact it's had for you personally, and then, you know, the ripple effect of what's going on.
You know, here it is. The movie was in theaters January of 2016. So this is 4 years later. And 4 years later, you know, I still get calls to come and speak and tell the story. And there's a lot of churches that they will call me and ask me, they say, we want to show the movie, and would you come and bring books, and then after the movie, would you speak and sit around and take pictures with people and stuff? And I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
That's great. I even did it for a Greek Orthodox church in Melbourne.
Nice.
Can you believe
wow.
that? That's fantastic. I could not believe it, you know. But anyway, I get to do that, and I still, you know, I'm on Facebook. I got 5,000 friends. I don't know who.
We're close friends all the time.
I don't know who most of them are. I really don't. But I get people on Facebook that send me messages. You know, hey, I watched the movie last night, or I did this. I read your book, and it just gets some unbelievable comments. I've had wrestlers that, you know, saw it and read it and just said, you know, I'm a believer now, and you know, it impacted my life. Last week, I did 2 interviews last week on wrestling podcasts with people. And then I'm sitting there Sunday night, I'm sitting there and I get a message on Facebook, and I look, and this guy said, my 9-year-old boy read your book and we saw the movie, and is there any way you could just write him a little message for his scrapbook?
Aww.
And the guy lives in Missouri. And I did better than that. I sent him a 8x10, and I sent him a book, and I sent him a bunch of stuff, you know. But that, you know, that happened. I've gotten people from England that have contacted me. You know, they saw the movie and they loved it. And, Ireland. I got interviewed by a Romanian reporter who saw the movie.
Goodness.
A Romanian reporter who saw the movie, and so it just had some unbelievable impact. And I think the impact of the movie is this: it is that we serve the God of a second chance, because I've been the recipient of that second chance in my life. One of my favorite passages of Scripture, and you would do an awesome job on this passage, so you really ought to preach on this. It's Jeremiah 18, 1-6, where God tells Jeremiah to go to the potter. And he said, I got a lesson to teach you. And he goes to the potter, and the potter is working with the clay on the wheel. And when he gets through, the clay is marred in the hands of the potter. It's flawed. So the potter simply squishes the clay back together, puts it back on the wheel, and makes the same piece of clay into a new vessel. Maybe not the vessel it was intended, but a useful vessel. And then God says, cannot I do the same with you? Or as the clay is in the hands of the potter, so are you in my hand, O house of Israel. So that was the story of my life. I mean, I had, you know, I was a redneck looking for an accident to happen, you know. And you know, I had so many flaws in my life. And when I came to God, you know, he picked me up, squished me back together, put me on the wheel, and made me into a new vessel. And so we serve the God of a second chance. So I don't care what you've done in your life. I guarantee you, I haven't told you everything I've done in my life. I've got some other stories. But I guarantee you won't be able to beat very many of the things in my life. If God can forgive somebody like me and actually use him, think of what he can do with your life. And if you let God put you on that wheel and make you into a new vessel. So I think you know, when people say, what's the message of the movie? It's the fact that we serve the God of a second chance. They even threw that in there, you know, in one of the last scenes before the cage match, you know. So he is the God of a second chance, and that's the impact of the movie for me.
Well, now I got to do a little housekeeping here, though. A little trivia here, Mass Saint trivia.
Okay.
It also is not only Diane Carroll's last film, it is the last film of a WWE legend.
Rockin' Roddy, baby.
Roddy Piper, right?
Yeah.
Right.
He's in the film as well.
Roddy Piper, what an unbelievable guy. You talk about one of the most talented guys in the business. It was Roddy Piper.
Yeah.
I mean, Piper, he was a great heel, but he was a great babyface.
Yeah.
You know, and of course he was great on film too. Do you realize if you go to IMDb and you IMDb Roddy Piper, I think it's over 100 films.
Oh my golly.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I don't like any of the new TV. I love the old TV stuff. I'm watching Walker, Texas Ranger. Yeah, there's Roddy Piper. But he, now there's a cult movie called They Live.
Yes, with the glasses, right?
Yeah. And he was one of the stars of They Live.
Remember that?
You know, that movie.
Oh my golly.
He said, there's a scene in there. I'm chewing bubble gum and I'm doing this. I can't say it on. But Roddy Piper, I think he had 4 kids. He loved his family. If you YouTube any Roddy Piper match on TV, you'll see that he never took his wedding ring off. He always wrestled with his wedding ring on. And he didn't want to work on the weekends. He wanted to be home with his family on the weekends. I had not seen him. I worked against him, you know, 25 years before the film was made. I hadn't seen him in 25 years. And so when I got there, I said, I know you probably don't remember me, but, you know, we just hit it off again really, really well. He's just a great guy, great actor. And we're the same age, exactly the same age. The film was finished at the end of November of 2013, and then tragically he died of a heart attack in his sleep. I think it was like July 30th or July 31st of 2014. And so it was his last film too. And they dedicated the film to him.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Did you wrestle him? Did you? No, I mean, during the filming of the.
No.
Because you were body slammed, so I thought maybe you mixed it up a little bit.
He was still in good shape.
See, you both could have.
And then you also had not just the wrestling scene that Michael talked about earlier, but you had a cameo in the film as well too.
I didn't want to talk about that.
You were there though. I saw him. Another guy.
Yeah, they have one scene where I'm just clapping and looking at somebody, and then they gave me one line in the movie, one line. And they had me all hooked up with the microphone, you know, they got it hidden and everything. And my one line, "You got him, Saint." How hard is it?
Hey,
you got him, Saint.
Brilliant.
And
that won the award. What are you talking about? That kicked it over the top.
They had to do about 4 takes.
Oh no.
4 takes.
That sounds like us.
I would do it, and he'd say, "Now, next time we do it, do this." And I thought I did that, and he'd say, "No, next time do this." And it's like, how hard is it just to go, you got him saint? But yeah, anyway. But yep, they put me in there.
Well, and all of that you can see if you get your copy of The Masked Saint. It is available on DVD. You can get it through Amazon right now. It's playing, when we're recording this, it's playing on Amazon Prime right now. It has had a long run on Netflix. I will say this because I am an authority on this. There are 2 great films in all of Christendom.
Wow.
Okay? 2. The Passion,
Okay.
because it's a Mel Gibson film, and it's about Jesus, so what could go wrong with that? But next to that, this stands alone, The Masked Saint, and so we're thrilled that, Chris, you've been with us.
Thank you so much.
Also make sure that you get a copy of the book, because the book is actually, you hear sometimes some people say, book's better than the movie. I mean, I think it is.
We were hearing today
because, again,
the
from
book
what
is
we're
better.
hearing, I mean, the book in some ways is better than the movie, but both are excellent. This is now going to be my autographed picture before we leave, but this is him in the flesh. Yeah. And and I guess the last thing before we kind of get out of here is, you're a wrestler, you're a preacher, so now as a preacher you're civilized.
Preachers are not civilized.
Do you ever take the wrestler out of the preacher? Can you ever do that?
It's impossible.
Yeah.
It is. Even my last church, First Baptist Longwood, we're in revival. You know what I mean?
I do.
It's evangelism and revival. I see a pattern here.
Revival services. The evangelist is Rick Corum, who is an awesome preacher. And so I forget if it was a Monday night or whatever, but anyway, I went by the church, and I got word that one of our members was in the hospital. And I said, okay, I'll go. I said, I got to go put my suit on, because I still wore a suit in those days.
You need to, yeah.
I got to put my suit on. And so anyway, I go, I get my suit on, I make the visit, I come back to the church, getting out of my car, and all of a sudden, somebody drops the F-bomb in the parking lot.
Deacon?
That will, no, it wasn't a deacon.
Music
no.
minister.
That's why I was just wondering. I know.
That will get your attention.
Yeah, it does.
It will get your attention. And, I heard that, and I'm looking around, and I see this young man all the way on the other side of the parking lot hitting this very pregnant young lady. Everything he's saying is, a cuss word, and then he hits this pregnant girl, which was his girlfriend. And I screamed across the parking lot. I said, hey! And he turned around, and he said, what's your... And then a lot of accolades came out, that I cannot say. And I just started walking towards him. And I took my jacket off. I took the jacket off, and I dropped my glasses, and I'm walking towards him. And, we had a school on our campus at that time. Right. And my daughter taught in that school. She told me the story. I didn't know it, but she told me, she said, Dad, I came out of the building, I looked, and I saw you, and I saw him, and I heard him, and I'm saying, oh no. And she said, I went up in front of you. She said, I was right in front of you going, no, Dad, no, Dad, no, Dad, no, Dad. And she said, you didn't even look at me. She said, you just kept going. And so anyway, I got up to the young man, and I said, hey, this is a church parking lot. I said, you shouldn't be using language like that. There's still people walking around here, and you sure shouldn't be hitting a pregnant girl. And he did that thing where he came towards me. And
Here we go.
He said, it's none of your blanking business, you. And he used the dirtiest words he could. And there I am, physically fighting in the parking lot. And there are people around, and finally, he made a mistake, and I was able to get him up, and I body slammed him on the concrete. And when I did, you hear the air leaving, And so I got down, I put my knee in his throat, and I said, hey, buddy, I'm going to let you up, and when I do, you better get your fanny off this parking lot. You understand me right now? And if I ever see you hitting this girl again, I'm going to do this again. You understand me? And he got up, and then when he got up, he started cussing again.
Oh, my
and
sakes.
he's like, I'm going to kill you, man. I'm going to kill you. And I took my phone, and I started you know, dialing. I hit 911, and they started going out of the parking lot. The cop comes up, Longwood's best, you know. He comes up, and I tell him what took place, and he's talking with another Longwood policeman. He said, yeah, they got him over there in the parking lot. And I said, hey, I want to press charges against that guy. He said, are you an idiot? I said, he can press charges against you. Right. So, you know, you can't get rid of the redneck in me.
There you go. I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah. Not only is you pastor, you can be head of security.
Show the guns.
There we go. So
show him. There
that's
you
it,
go.
man. There you go.
There you go.
Man, we are so glad you joined us, Chris Whaley. Thank you. The Masked Saint, Life, Mary 51. See the movie, get the book, and thanks for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you again next time.